Hey guys, today for the coordinated, we have a person I think needs no introduction and all. I think thanks Nader for doing this and giving us time to for this little thing. So,
Absolutely. Thank you for having me and for coming out here and finding a convenient place that works for both of us.
thanks a lot. I think I have so many questions to you, but I'll keep it short and crisp and focus to EigenLayer specific to today. I in crypto and let's say you have a diverse experience of working with top protocols, AVS, steering graph, and you are like a very key member in developer DAO also. Like with all those experience, what make you choose to join EigenLayer?
I was looking for something that I can be working on for a long period of time because I kind of bounced around companies in Web3 for my time here, to be honest. And it's really taken me a lot of time to kind of understand the industry and where things are headed and what I want to be working on. And I really enjoyed my experience at AWS. I was there for almost 4 years. It was very fulfilling to be able to work on something and see it through over a long period of time and kind of grow. We went from very few, like a few hundred developers, maybe 1,000, to over 300,000 active developers on the products that I was working on. And it just was a really cool experience. I was kind of looking for that in this space. So when I decided to move on from Abe, I ended up talking to quite a few companies actually and narrowing it down based on that question, where do I want to be for the next 4 or 5 years? And based on everything that I've seen, I thought that EigenLayer stood out a lot because it is kind of like a new developer platform that made me have a very similar feeling to kind of where AWS was in the earlier days. It's just a very broad number of things that can be done and a lot of opportunity that can be built there. So that combined with just knowing and talking to Sriram and having a lot of confidence in him as a founder and meeting a lot of the other team members, all of those things combined made me really, really excited to take the opportunity with EigenLayer. And I've been here for almost a year now, it's been about 10 months. So it's been a lot of fun so far, but I'm really excited about, really the next 3 or 4 years.
Great. As you mentioned, one thing you have spend a significant amount of time with AWS. I think I have heard Sriram saying this thing we are verified AWS or we are AWS of is the term coming from you or is it something internal, something like that?
No, it's kind of something that he's been, thinking about in terms of how to conceptualize a lot of the stuff that can be built on EigenLayer, because it's really a completely blank slate for what you can build. But the underlying similarity between all the things that can be built is that they're verifiable. So you can build out any product, any service, anything that you could possibly think of, you just add verifiability to it. So really what you can do with EigenLayer that you can't really do with traditional programming environments in the Web3 space, which would be programmable blockchains, is that you're not limited or bound by the EVM or by any specific programming language. You can build in Rust, Go, TypeScript, Python, whatever you would like. And then you just make the verifiability of the outcome of the program that you're building on chain. And therefore, you can build the majority of your program in any programming language.
I think one little difference, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think in AWS, you need the most things are controlled by the how Amazon wants things to go. I think for EigenLayer, things will be much more community driven. I think that's where the ethos of blockchain banks in.
Exactly. That's a really good way to put that.
And let's as we are also talking before this, S3 and all those other countless mini services which are there in Amazon. I think those are as I mentioned in the previous question only, that it has it has been conceptualized by the Amazon developers and the core teams. But for EigenLayer and let's say the Alias builders per se, it will be people. Anybody can build on top of it. Is it how it is, sir?
That's a good analogy. I think S3 is an especially good analogy because it was kind of the first or one of the first services that was built at AWS. But after working at AWS for almost 4 years and seeing all the new services that were being built, I realized almost all these new services actually utilize EC2 and S3 under the hood. So they kind of enable hundreds of new services to exist because that core primitive existed. So I think that the analogy for EigenLayer is EigenDA and some of these new ABSs that are going to be core primitives that are being built by the community and by other founders will be those core primitives that enable a lot of new programs and a lot of new services to exist. So S3, you build hundreds of new products and services that need the storage solution. EigenDA, you build roll-ups and products and services that need that high throughput, that highly scalable data availability solution. And I think we're going to see that kind of play out. And again, that's kind of another thing that really excites me. It's like you have these primitives, they work really well, and they open up the door to just a million other things that could be built.
Awesome. I think like could you move into the AVS part? I think yesterday Gadesh and both Shriyam tweeted one thing. Like it's how we used to know active validated services. And both of them tweeted autonomous verifiable service. So want to know like how, like why this shift and the thought process behind this.
I think about 6 months ago, we were talking about actively validated services not being the right term, because in reality, once the service is launched, it is kind of now living on its own, and it's kind of like autonomous. And validated is not the best term. Verifiable is the better term. So when you kind of like rethink that, then you get autonomous verifiable services. But because it's kind of like rebranding and all that, it's a lot to kind of put out there. We're focused on other things. But I think now that we're starting to see the idea of autonomy becoming more well understood by the wider community due to agents, I think that it's a good time to kind of start talking about the fact that that could be a better terminology for what an AVS is. And the good thing about that is that you're not changing the acronym. The acronym is still AVS. So yeah, that's kind of the general thinking there.
Great. I think like one question which we were discussing like before also that why devs should care about AVSs. Like as I was repeatedly asking you that we have all these L1 solutions and whatever like protocols and all.
Yes, totally.
Like now the AVS like now EigenLayer comes in. Like a normie dev which is not that much familiar with EigenLayer, like why he should use the AVS stack like to build. Yeah,
I think there's a common thread in a lot of developer tooling companies, a lot of developer platform companies. It's like we want to lower the barrier to entry developers, right? That's kind of what people say. And I think it's a very similar thing here, but you can't just lower the barrier to entry a little bit. When you launch a new product or a new service or a new app, you often hear this saying it needs to be 10x or more of an improvement for anyone to actually care. Because if it's just a slightly better idea or product, people are already kind of locked into these other ways of doing things, and it makes it harder to kind of make them leave. So that's why when you saw developer platforms like the iOS store that opened up a new way for people to build mobile apps, which wasn't just the App Store, it was Xcode, it was Objective-C, it was the App Store, and all of these things kind of put together to kind of open this new developer platform. You had an explosion of innovation on the mobile app space. When AWS became online, you now kind of saw this explosion in software companies that were leveraging AWS. And then the last analogy I'll use is when programmable blockchains became a thing, which was essentially a smart contract blockchain. You saw Web3 come into existence because anyone could build a DApp. You didn't have to be a protocol engineer. You could just be a smart contract developer and build a DApp. So you now kind of had this new explosion of innovation that was all of these things were 10x or more improvements. And I think that the reason that EigenLayer has attracted so many builders, it's that it is that new 10x improvement. It's that new developer platform that allows anyone in the world to build out anything that they would like and make it verifiable. Where in the past they had to do a lot more work. It was a lot larger of an effort, and therefore it limited a lot of people's ideas. They weren't never able to take them to market because it was just too much work. So we're at the early stages of making that 100x easier. It's easier now, but we want to even make it even easier. And the way that we do that is by providing better developer tooling, the better SDKs, and just more high quality abstractions that really allow people to focus on just writing the business logic of the application or of the service that they want. And that's the whole idea, making it 100x easier, faster, cheaper to build out arbitrary services. And then to icing on the cake, you can write any language that you would like. So I think that a lot of developers really have a programming language that they want to be writing in, and they can kind of do that. So
yeah. So like following up to that thing, as we are also discussing, like the use cases are the best way to teach like developers to like what it unlocks. So if you can highlight a few use cases you are looking forward which AVS can unlock, which wasn't possible earlier.
Yeah, I think that first of all, you have all of these different use cases that already have product market fit. but you can now iterate on them a lot faster, and you can also build them a lot cheaper than you could in the past. So what are some of these ideas that have product market fit? I think file storage, and we are just talking about S3, is a very, very big one. Every application needs some type of storage solution. You've seen Filecoin, IPFS, and Arweave, and Iris, and all these different networks. They've gained a lot of adoption. For instance, in most blockchain applications, you have to store metadata permanently, and people use IPFS and Arweave. But I think building out a similar product or services at AVS makes a lot of sense. Having something like an S3 compatible API, something that's very fast, something that's very cheap, something that just works really well, and being able to kind of build that as an AVS makes tons of sense. We're seeing an explosion of verifiable AI being built. There's a lot of, I would say, design space there. But one of the things is being able to just make AI outputs available on chain and verifiably across a network of nodes. And there are dozens of teams kind of building various things in the AI space. Then you have just really the whole like roll up service category. So sequencers, coprocessors, people offloading this really massive compute off chain and bringing it back on chain, enabling a lot of things that you couldn't do in the past. And then to me, that's area that's super exciting is prediction markets. And I think a lot of people also kind of are starting to see this because prediction market isn't just about gambling or trading. It's literally about bringing a higher quality of information to the public. So what does that mean in practice? Well, the news will tell you one thing, but the prediction market tells you that thing faster. So in the last election cycle, you would watch CNN or you would watch Fox News and they would be like, yeah, well, we're not too sure about who's going to win. But Polymarket called the election way before anyone else. And that was a result of this like primitive that was built that turned into an application that ultimately moved from being this place where people gamble to this place where you find news in real time. So I think that was really exciting. And with AVSs, you can build out just a wide array of prediction market primitives and prediction markets.
I think just to like deep down on that, I think prediction markets are trend. I think like it's in as if you see the crypto community and all, like just want to know that Polymarket is built on Polygon. Like what extra thing EigenLayer enables if you build a prediction market?
Yeah, so Polymarket is actually built on a few different protocols. So Polygon, but as well as like UMA protocol and a few other ones that they were able to put together. But let's say I wanted to build out my own prediction market for, let's say, DevCon. I wanted to say, okay, what's going to be the most talked about thing at DevCon? Or is Justin Drake going to make an announcement at DevCon? Like those sorts of things. The Polymarket doesn't offer those, right? So I would need to build out my own custom prediction market for the information that I want to be made available, as opposed to just relying on Polymarket to make those decisions for me or to lobby them to make those. So if you wanted your own custom prediction market, that's why you would use something like EigenLayer. You can build it much faster, much more quickly, and you have full control over everything that you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I think like from the generic overview, we'll like go a little specific to the like your job at EigenLayer. Like you're a DevRel primarily. Like you do all those things, but primarily you're a DevRel. Like what's your pitch to when you go meet developers or like go to some like gigabit protocols who are not with EigenLayer?
I think I'm very, very lucky and fortunate because I work in a company where I don't really have to pitch them on anything. And that's been my approach since I became somewhat able to kind of pick and choose where I wanted to work. I've worked with teams that have products that I think are good enough to where you don't really have to convince anyone to build anything. You talk to them, you understand their needs, and if they feel like they have a problem that needs to be solved, they might ask for your advice. And if you feel like the thing that you're working on might be able to solve that, you tell them about it. But if not, you don't. You point them to the right thing that does help solve their problem. So I know that's not like a conventional answer, but that's kind of the way I approach things. Luckily, lately, I think early on though, if you're in DevRel, you do need to kind of be out there doing that grinding work, convincing people. But even then, you hopefully are working for a product or a team that you actually believe in what they're building, and it's more natural than trying to actually convince anyone of anything. It's more about I'm going to just explain this thing publicly. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to give information in different ways. And then when I meet someone in real life, if the conversation naturally comes to that, we'll talk about it. But I think the most successful people are not out there like shilling the thing that they're working on to people. It's more of like a natural conversation, I think. So
I think like continuing that discussion, one thing I think, as you mentioned that like EigenLayer as a brand, and not only brand, as a real sound product which has been built thoroughly, but like there must be some blockers which you are facing on which you want to get solved.
oh yeah,
And like if you want to like share something about that.
yeah, totally. I think you have to like look at the whole, I would say, life cycle of building out a service today. Then we're going to look at the way EigenLayer does it today, and then we're going to look at like where we would like to be a year from now, and then maybe 5 years from now. So the whole value proposition around EigenLayer just makes it a lot easier to kind of bootstrap that security, and you can then focus more around your own business logic and the differentiating features of the service that you want to build. And you're not worried about that whole bootstrapping the operator set and that network of nodes and the operators, or I guess you can call them validators, and the tokens and all that stuff, because that's a lot of work that kind of takes the attention away from founders and builders. So that's where we are today with EigenLayer. You still have to, though, do quite a bit of work. There is some complexity in terms of dealing with operators and slashing and configuring your operator sets. And that's kind of where we're at today. It's still not simple to do. I think we're starting to see abstractions and teams and companies that come to fill that gap as we also improve our documentation, our reference architectures. You have Authentic, you have Layered X with Z, you have AltLayer, you have Gadget, and maybe a couple of other ones that are out there kind of making that easier. So I think a year or two from now, it's going to be much easier than it is today by either leveraging those various abstractions, or we've just improved our own tooling and our own SDKs and our own reference architectures to kind of get there. So we're still in the early days. It's still not simple to do, but yeah, hopefully maybe in a year we can literally say it is a simple thing to do, and that's where we want to be.
So I think with this one point you mentioned earlier, that like anybody can, I think in React, TypeScript, and whatever languages, can build AVSs on that. Like how like really how it's like what's the state currently? Like how can developer like can build a AVS without knowing much of Solid?
Yeah, I think the most simple thing to do would be to fork our hello world. The hello world is very, very, very basic. And an AVS has two main components. You have the off-chain part and the on-chain part. Most of your code is going to be written off-chain in the off-chain component. And that's what the hello world has written in TypeScript. And we also have it hello world in Rust as well. You'll go in there, you'll kind of like see what's going on. There's a couple of functions that will be doing things like creating a task and registering the operator on the TypeScript side. And then on the Solidity side, you're just getting the information from that TypeScript and it being verified through the EigenLayer contract. And that's the AVS contract. So I think there's maybe 5 or 6 functions there that you have to read through. And if you're a developer that understands Solidity, that understands either Rust or TypeScript, our Hello World SDK, our Hello World reference architecture should be good enough to kind of just get you started to understanding the whole mental model of what all this looks like.
And like I think like one thing also you just mentioned is about the slashing part. I think it's still not live yet, and it's a very core core feature of the EigenLayer protocol, and the users are looking forward to it. Any expected time frame of that, like when slashing can be enabled?
It's the number one priority, along with maintaining what we already have, moving towards whatever other like minor features that we have. But yeah, slashing and getting slashing out is currently very high priority, and it's being worked on right now. I can't give an exact timeline, but I would say within the next 3 months we should see something that's out there and ready to go. But yeah, it's taken some time because it is such an important part of how EigenLayer is going to function, and it is literally probably the most important thing that we get right at this moment in time. So therefore, there's a lot of care, a lot of craft, a lot of security concerns that people want to kind of just make sure we get right before we go live with that.
Cool. I think like before wrapping up, one last question is like, if a dev which is like who is not aware of what AVS is, or like who wants to know more about EigenLayer, like what should be his or her approach to build something using the Eigen stack?
I think that there's 2 ways you might approach this. One, you just want to experiment and you want to learn this new skill set, and you don't really have an idea you want to build right now. And I think that's a good way to expand what potential you have as a developer. So I learned React Native early on, And then I ultimately was lucky enough to kind of be able to work on React Native soon thereafter. But that was something that like I would have like enjoyed learning anyway, and I would have probably ended up having opportunities that came out of it. I learned how to build with like these AI services fairly early on, and I built something that was successful. There's always been always these experiments that I've done that led to success, but it wasn't something that I needed right away. I think that would be one approach. You just learn how to build an AVS, and then maybe one day you have this bright idea. Oh, this would be a good fit, and then you now have this new tool in your toolkit that you can apply to that idea. That's one area, and then the other area might be you literally have an idea that you want to build, but it's been too hard to build right now because you have to build everything from the ground up. That you can then apply the AVS model to build out that. So if you're in either of those areas, I think it makes sense to kind of experiment with it. I think anytime a new developer platform comes into existence, it's worth experimenting with, just so you understand how to use it, and then you might have this new tool that you can apply when the time comes.
Cool. I think like that gives a very like quick overview of like how anybody can like interact with the EigenLayer protocol and build apps and AVSs over that. Then we can have more sessions later on, maybe not like
Yeah, I would like that.
more like devs can use the Eigen stack and AVS.
Yeah, absolutely. Please just let me know when you're ready for that. We can do it.
Sure. Thanks for your time. Thanks.